got this job. Commanding the first Warp 5 ship was about as big a responsibility as I could have imagined. Then we began running into so many bad guys. And I had to start thinking more about the safety of 83 people.
And now the stakes have gotten a lot bigger.
Weight of the world trip.
Our decision at the end of season 2 was to take the characters on Enterprise and torque them up a little bit. We wanted to lose a little of the wet behind the ears, indecisive people taking their first footsteps out into space, and to make them a little bit more decisive and a little bit more quintessential action heroes.
The studio really wanted something different for season 3, and they were putting a little pressure on Rick and I to revamp the show. Well, revamp could mean anything. Revamp could mean changing characters. Well, we felt that had been done on Star Trek, with 7 of 9 and Worf, for instance.
We looked into the feature films to see which feature films had the greatest pull as far as the audiences were concerned. And the two movies that seemed to be the standouts were Star Trek IV, one about the whales, and First Contact, one about the Borg. And the one thing that those two movies had in common were that Earth was in great danger.
I think it started with wanting to put Earth in jeopardy and have a terrible attack on Earth, and aliens wanting to blow up Earth. And Enterprise, being the only Warp 5 ship, has to go find them and stop them before it's too late. Big stakes. And that's how it kind of started.
We spent a lot of time thinking about what we could do that would be true to the concept and that would not go against our principles of what Enterprise was about or what Star Trek was about. We didn't want to compromise what we were doing, because there are a lot of reasons the show's ratings can go down that don't necessarily have anything to do with the content of what you're producing. It was, after all, our 23rd season, 24th season in a sense, if you consider Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager.
We decided to do something we'd never done. Let's tell a 24-part episode.
We weren't sure it was going to last a whole season. We thought it might only last half a season, but we thought that if we could get the story material, that it might last an entire season.
Are you suggesting this is a Xindi?
I sure as hell would like to find out.
In terms of who the Xindi were, that didn't come till after our break. And we came back and said, okay, we got to figure out this whole season. We've given them a cliffhanger involving the destruction of Earth. Millions of people are dead. Kind of shocking. Star Trek's never done anything like that on the TV show. What do we do? And we just started talking. We started coming up. I'd say in the first month that we were back from break, we came up with virtually everything in the entire storyline, which to me indicated it was a good idea, because we were creatively re-energized. The 5-species Xindi was an interesting science fiction concept that I think really worked out well. Each species was featured at some point along the way. They had internal strife. They betray each other, like Shakespeare play or something, backstabbing and all sorts of stuff going on. We end up befriending, of course, the humanoid species. You know, it's kind of a shame we couldn't befriend the fish people, but that would have been too expensive.
Help me save my people, and I can help you save yours. No one can understand or begin to relate how they would react given those kinds of circumstances. No one knew how they would react or could imagine what would happen after something like 9/11 happened, because we couldn't even fathom that occurring.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you never know about those things. Tolkien always claimed that The Lord of the Rings did not emerge from the Second World War, but it's awfully hard sometimes when you read the books to think how it could not have. I had that same reaction, generally speaking, to the Xindi arc. I thought, I suppose that you could say that it wasn't, hey, I've got an idea, let's figure out a metaphorical way of dealing with 9/11. But somewhere in the unconscious level, at least, I can't help but think that those stories weren't largely influenced by what we're going through today.
I'd pitched an idea early on about space pirates, and how we were entering this area of space that was much more dangerous than the area we had been in before. So it seemed natural, either there'd be pirates there. That was sort of the genesis for what became, which was, I guess, the second episode of the season, which was Anomaly.
You better start talking now, because in about 40 seconds, you won't be able to.
Brannon eventually did some rewriting on it and did a powerful scene that ended up influencing the rest of the season, where Archer basically is pushed to the point where he's got to torture an alien to get some information out of him, which was something we hadn't really quite seen Archer do before. And so it was a real turning point for his character.
He'll die. Not for another 20 seconds, he won't.
We just said last year, let's push the envelope. What can we give this guy? How can we, if he needs information from somebody, and in the past he did it in a clever way or this way or whatever, however way they would have done it. Now the clock is ticking, and it ticked the whole season, and he had to take shortcuts, and he had to throw out some of his beliefs, morals, whatever you want to call it, and say, I have to do this. I'm doing this for the greater good. I'm doing it for my planet, and if I sacrifice this other being in the process, I'll figure that out after it happens. In that particular case, that man didn't die. Would Archer have tortured him? Would Archer have killed him in that airlock? We don't know. I don't know. But was it a scary moment for fans? Was it an upsetting moment for fans? Or there was a lot of talk about it afterwards. There was talk when it came out on the page. Is this okay? Is this appropriate? And you have to weigh the circumstances.
Sir?
Your memory getting any better? Say again?
Captain?
The great flip of last season was that happened, I think, episode 2 in season 3. And then somewhere down the line, like episode 18 or 19, I was confronted with the reverse situation where I was forced to become a pirate because I couldn't get to a meeting. My ship was damaged, the warp drive was damaged, without some parts that this other ship had. And I asked them nicely. I tried to swap, I tried to trade, and finally I had to cross the line. And I did as best I could to leave them with enough supplies to help hopefully get them to limp home safely. We didn't kill anyone on their ship, but we took what we wanted. So it was a nice turn to see us being attacked by pirates, our response to that, and then weeks later, however the timeline of the season went, months later, being forced to become the pirate.
What you can't have, you take by force. You're stranding us 3 years from home. Why are you doing this?
Because I have no choice.
Energize.
A show that I'm really proud of is Damage. And I think I hold that close to my heart, or closest to my heart, because it's a show about moral choices, and it's a show about not being perfect and trying to deal with that, which are issues that I'm interested in, whether it be in science fiction or just in general drama. It has an A and a B story, the A story being the one where Captain Archer has to decide whether to leave a group of aliens stranded in order to repair his ship, in order to make a crucial rendezvous. That's going to mean beating the Xindi. And for T'Pol, it's realizing that she is addicted to emotions via the trellium that she was exposed to, and that she is struggling with this addiction.
I think because of Spock, Jolene's T'Pol, though not human, obviously what they did with her in the 3rd season by giving her this trellium addiction allowed her to experiment with her emotions, to be more vulnerable, to not really to be lost, to be these things which again allow an audience to connect more to her.
I know full well what I'm doing.
I can't justify this course of action.
We don't have a choice.
I won't let you do it!
The inspiration for the T'Pol side was partly that Mike Sussman and I had written a first season episode called Fusion, which was about T'Pol being interested in experimenting with emotions. And a lot of it had come up through the 2 years that she had this predilection, and she'd spent time on Earth. And, you know, she was not your typical Vulcan. There's been a lot of controversy about whether any of the Vulcans were typical for in this period, and whether under Brandon and Rick we had taken them, you know, way too far to the emotional side. So here was a chance to say T'Pol was interested in emotion. She was exposed to the Trellium, which in impulse made her, you know, nearly lose control. What if she could use that? And what if she really wanted to experience emotions, partly because she wants to get close to Trip but doesn't know how? The other thing that we had talked about for a while, Brandon and the rest of the team, was showing an episode where we had really been damaged beyond belief, you know, and how were we going to deal with it? And I, who like to deal in metaphor, wanted to deal with that on a human or Vulcan level, personal level, as well as the ship level. And that became Damage.
I've always been much better at avoiding farewells than at giving them, so I'm not even going to try.
We were in the Xindi mission, which was very much a military mission, and we're going to save the Earth, but we're going to do it with no matter what. And the characters were very driven. I thought it would be fun to have Archer look back, kind of, in the first, you know, he was, to my thinking, he was looking back to the first 2 seasons where he was saying, you know, when this is over, let's go back to our original mission, which was to explore, this benign exploration of, and friendly exploration of other worlds. And that was something that I had been thinking about for some time, and I was able to put it into Azadi Prime.
But I'm going to ask all of you to think back to the day when this ship was first launched. We were explorers then. When all this is over, when Earth is safe, I want you to get back to that job.